It's Wednesday. We're flying casual. This is James Wasile, joined with Josh Lucas from the Den of Nerds YouTube channel. Happy to have you with us on the Rebel Scum podcast. How you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Happy to be here as always. Guys, it's another video with James and I. So, look, I see the comments. I know, look, some of you call me a shill. Some of you are like, hey, I really like that guy. I like when he does videos with James. So, bada boom, here we go. Another video with James.
I got a check for you. The one from Disney came in the mail. I'll send that to you.
Honestly, like, the shill thing is so funny. It's such a cool but funny idea out there. Like, guys, please, where are these checks at? Because they must have the wrong address. Because if I'm really a Disney shill, like, God. And remember, we did the good, the bad, and the ugly live stream?
Yeah, we did.
I was literally just pooping on the Last Jedi like the whole time.
Actually, before we get into Crate and the Battle of Crate, what do you think of the Last Jedi in this moment?
I love it, and you know it's been that way for. I know it's so funny. It's been that way for a long time, dude. I'm really trying to squeeze one more showing out of this while it's still in theaters because I legitimately love the film. Yeah, it's been a rocky road. Some days I wake up and I'm like, hold on, but you know, some days I wake up and I'm like, dude. The greatest teacher failure is, and so.
I'm looking to see it again and again and again and again and again. March 27th is, I think, when the DVD comes out.
I can't wait for that. It's going to be so cool.
No. Actually, for those of you that are Patreon subscribers to the Rebel Scum podcast, every single Patreon, from the $1 tier to the $10 tier, every single one of you is in a draw to win the Last Jedi Blu-ray. So
what you're saying is you're trying to get me on your Patreon?
I'm trying to. No, even if you are, you're disqualified.
What?
Well, I tried to win a porg. I answered all your questions.
Oh, dude! Wait till you see what I'm mailing out to you today. I think it'll quell some of those problems.
But yeah, Last Jedi. We gotta do a commentary on that and somehow get you to come on the commentary.
Oh, that would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll figure out how we can do that. That'll be fun. So anyway, let's go on to Crate, the Battle of Crate, the Salt Planet, as the guy next to Gareth Edwards lets us all know. Josh, what do you have to say about Crate and the ending of The Last Jedi?
Man, I thought it was really cool, actually. It's an interesting scene. You know what's funny? It's like a very weird setup for like a battle. Because on the one hand, like, they're just totally screwed, right? They're just like in this big building, like they just got this big wall, or as Poe called it, the big ass wall. And they have like an overwhelming amount of force that the First Order comes down with. And it is kind of hilarious how it all plays out because first you have like these speeders coming in and like the idea to me that the speeders could in any way stop what was like a military onslaught of like the biggest AT-ATs you've ever seen in your life. Like the idea that had any sort of a chance whatsoever is laughable. But I do remember, you know what's so funny? It's like I remember the first time I watched the film when they start that music when Luke goes out to face him and you're just like, dude, oh my God, like holy cow, like this is insane. And everything that transpires from that is really like, you know, a lot of misdirection, a lot of interesting stuff happening there. And at the end of the day, and I think this is what we're going to get to, is what we're going to get into, the galaxy has one more story about Luke Skywalker. Luke Skywalker sort of reclaims his status as a legend. And I think that's terrific. So that's kind of my baseline thoughts.
Yeah, I did. On episode 79 with Brock this week, we talked about the future of Luke Skywalker. Is he going to come back as a Force ghost? Is he not? And right now, as you were just talking, I'm starting to think maybe, and I've said on the show, and somebody gave me crap for it, but I'm kind of done with Luke Skywalker. I'm just like, leave him. He's dead. Like, just leave him be. You know, let him be.
I saw that. I was watching 79 yesterday, I think, when you were saying that. And I'm just like, oh.
But you know what? When you're talking, right now I'm thinking, let him be dead, and because he needs to go out with a bang in a way where it's impactful for the story. And when this movie ends, is it impactful? Because all he really does is create a diversion. You know, he stops the First Order from getting to the Resistance, and like the Resistance gets out because Luke kind of, you know, gets Kylo Ren to shift his focus. So now what you're saying is Luke Skywalker is this mythological character within the Star Wars universe.
Yes, once again.
Once again. But we never saw that the first time.
Yep.
We skipped ahead. So now we're at this part where, Luke Skywalker is this mythological character. He did this grand achievement at the end of his life. And that now can be used to inspire whatever the heck is coming in Episode 9, whether it's Rey's new Jedi, other Force users kind of figuring it out on their own, things like that. And so in that respect, I'm kind of fine with Luke. The Skywalker saga, if Luke stays gone, never returns as a Force ghost, maybe he hovers around, but he doesn't talk. Like, he's just kind of, his presence is there. I think that really is powerful. It's a powerful message now, and it's something that does not hinder what happens in Episode 8, whether you like them or not. That could carry through to the next one, and he can be the reason why all these heroes emerge in the galaxy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's the point. Like, you watch some of the interviews with Ryan, and he's talking about how he had a different ending to The Last Jedi at first, and the reason that we see the story and Broom Boy at the end of the movie is not necessarily because Broom Boy is so awesome, Broom Boy 2020, you know what I mean? But, like, the idea is you need to show that Luke's sacrifice, that what Luke did at the end of that movie recreates the myth status, right? It literally makes these kids think, like, they're telling the story, right? And they're like, and the Resistance is totally screwed. And what happens? Jedi Master Luke Skywalker comes out, faces down the entire First Order, and he is defeated, but he's defeated by Kylo Ren, not the First Order. He's defeated by Kylo Ren, which sort of gives Kylo an interesting villain status as well. But Luke comes out, is so strong that he faces down all of these weapons, this barrage and everything, and then allows the First Order to escape with, what I would assume they would call his Padawan, Rey. And I think that the story that the Star Wars universe people are gonna have, very different from the story that you and I know, right? So I agree with you, but here's the thing, James. We can have our cake and eat it too. We can have Luke Skywalker not come back into prominence and allow that myth status to stay there, and yet he can still have quiet Force ghosty moments with Rey, maybe on Octu, maybe somewhere else on the Falcon. Luke could even come back as a Force ghost to sort of haunt Kylo. That would be really interesting. So I believe that there's a way to have more Luke Skywalker, which, come on, we all want, man. Well, maybe not you, but everybody that's reasonable wants it. But I agree with your point that bringing him back, it diminishes his sacrifice in 7. It's just like I was saying in my Snoke video from yesterday, where it's like, guys, even if Snoke comes back Darth Maul style, it's not happening in the saga. It would destroy what Kylo accomplishes if that were to happen. It's just not going to happen. So,
no, if Snoke were to come back, he'd have to come back as like a ghost, or that was a projection of him, blah, 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 blah. There's another video.
Oh, that projection thing is, like, so ridiculous to me. Even after I did that video, people are in the comment section, they say, at frame 37, you see him fade 70%. I'm like, dude, first of all, how do you even know where that frame is at, Well,
like, when I watched the movie, I was like, oh, no, he'll be back. And then they cut to his dead head.
Yeah, and he's just
they make it a point to show you that he's dead. Yeah, Ryan Johnson was like, we will show you that he is dead. So that's where I am.
Grotesquely too.
Yeah, I know. I'm whatever. Snoke. I'm okay with that. Luke, on the other hand, like I said, if he comes back as a Force ghost, that's fine. I don't know my question is, where does J.J. Abrams stand on all of this? Because we talked about this before. As I feel, I don't think the disconnect is as huge between the two movies. Like, I kind of feel like things were laid out, the grand things were laid out, the small little details obviously
made
up.
Raylo? Because that's the grand thing that was laid out, my friend. It's just
now we could call this video Raylo and get some views.
Yup. Shout out to you, Raylo girls. You're awesome.
Yeah, but things like that. I think Kylo killing Snoke in this one was something that they had planned. I think maybe the Luke dying is something that I question, only because there was Mark Hamill had that talk where he said he was. I said this in episode 79 in another video. where at the end of The Force Awakens in the script, there were supposed to be rocks floating all around him, and he was supposed to be very, very strong in the Force. And I believe he even thought that he was like the most powerful Force user of all time in that moment. And then Rian Johnson shows up and he's like, no, you've abandoned the Force. And he actually had to call he doesn't remember which one of those directors and say, do you know about this? And they're like, we fixed it. The ending is different now. So J.J. Abrams obviously had a different idea of Luke Skywalker. Do you think J.J. Abrams could retcon anything minor for Luke going into 9?
It's possible, man. I think, it's interesting because I see where you're going with that, and it's an interesting point. And I think that JJ, being such a fanboy of Luke, he does have the potential to do something. I think he's going to use him. Like, I think him and Chris Terrio were like, how are we going to use Luke? But here's the problem. Here's what it keeps coming back to. This is why we didn't get the Luke Skywalker that we wanted, is because all of the writers continuously say the same thing. When you put Luke in a scene, he steals it. When you put Luke in a movie, he steals it. And so part of the problem is when you're trying to let this new cast do their thing, how do you use Luke Skywalker in a way where he doesn't sabotage their arcs and the whole movie becomes about him, right? And so this is something that sort of plagued the production of this new trilogy from the start. Ryan's solution to this was actually pretty brilliant, in my opinion. Like, to me, it makes more sense that he closed himself off from the Force and he didn't feel Han dying or the problems in the galaxy. That makes way more sense than him being aware of everything and choosing not to come back, because that doesn't make sense to Luke, to my representation of the character. If he knew something was happening, he would have been there. If he knew Han was in trouble, he would have force projected himself and pushed Kylo off of that freaking bridge. You know what I'm saying? So is it possible that JJ will do something and utilize him? Absolutely. I would put money on that, but it's going to be the same old problem. What do we do to not have him overtake the movie?
Yeah, I think a lot of the problems people are having with The Last Jedi stem from what J.J. Abrams did in The Force Awakens. He made, like, there are choices in The Force Awakens that when you look at the saga as a whole, you're like, I don't know. Like, it's almost like, I always feel like J.J. Abrams understands what people like about the feeling of Star Wars, but not necessarily what Star Wars is. And I think that really is explaining his hate for the prequels so much too. Is like, he doesn't understand like the story that George Lucas had as the 6. He just understands the feelings that he gets from the 3. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. And I think, I don't think he's alone in that either. There's a lot of people that feel that way.
Dude, Force Awakens made $2 billion. He's definitely not alone.
Yeah, he's definitely not alone. Look, it's so interesting because I think that you and I, as big fans. By the way, guys, did you know James and I were big fans? Because
like and subscribe.
Yeah, like and subscribe. For real. If you don't, I'm going to find you. So we're huge fans. And the thing is, I think just being sort of more in the fandom rather than in the process of making the movies, we have a better grasp of like what the fandom is actually like. Like, one of the things that really blew me away at Celebration was there are fans that strictly came to Star Wars through the Clone Wars. I saw this little kid literally walking around being like, oh my God, Mom, that's Yoda from Clone Wars. Not that's Yoda from Empire. Nah, man, not that's Yoda from Attack of the Clones. No, Yoda from Clone Wars. And what you realize is you really got to take like your own perception out of it, your own ego out of it, because everybody likes to think that like their way of understanding Star Wars or appreciating it is the way. But that's super egotistical. Like, there are people out there that their favorite thing in Star Wars is Rebels. It's their favorite thing. That's what they love about Star Wars, and everything else is sort of ancillary to it. So I think when you and I have spent as much time as we have in the fandom, we see it a little bit differently. Star Wars itself, as long as those themes and those sort of mythic themes play out, I think it's really good. I actually think that this new saga is suffering because of some of the stuff that was in that they're actively trying to avoid. And the truth is, it's not what was in the prequels that hurt them. It is how they were executed, and the fact that George wouldn't listen to an editor. He was like, no, like, I'm beyond having to actually edit films correctly. And in some ways he is. So it's, you know.
When you put your own money into something, you do what you want with it. That's
for sure.
No, I completely agree. They're missing the point of, I think, I don't know, like a lot of people miss the point of the prequels because of the execution of the prequels, and they can't see past that. But the thing is now is I know a lot of subscribers on my channel, they come because we appreciate the prequels and we like the prequels, and they don't get that all the time necessarily from other channels or other people because there's so much hate on them.
Oh, yeah.
But there's a generation now that grew up with the prequels, and that's their Star Wars, and I think you can't forget about them. But we have lost sight of what is going on because I got to go into Rian Johnson for a little bit because we're both at Star Wars Celebration. Two things I really want to touch on with Rian Johnson that we did not discuss talking about today, but I have to before we get back to Crate, is two things. One, at Celebration, he had the time of his life. He loves Star Wars fans and everything. The one thing two things that are driving me nuts right now are, one, him having to explain every single decision he made for this movie, whether you agree with it or not. It doesn't, like, he made the movie. Like, why does he have to come on and say, I wouldn't change anything? No kidding. It's like, do you know what I mean? Like, why would you have to do that? The other thing though that's driving me nuts is he said that he was not expecting the backlash that he got on social media for this film. Now, if you love the film,
did he really say that? He said that he wasn't expecting it?
It was. I'm paraphrasing, but it was something. He was like, he didn't really see that coming. He was like, yeah, it hurt. He's like, I didn't expect that. How do you not expect? Like, if you're making this movie and you see the choices that are being made, like them or not, I'm not saying they're bad choices. I'm not saying they're amazing. They're just straight down the middle. If this was my movie and I made it and these were the choices, and I'd be like, wow, people waited 40 years for Luke to come back, and then they waited a whole movie for him, and you know what I mean? Like, those little things, like, how do you not expect this to come?
It's an interesting question. I honestly think that he probably did not expect the backlash the way that it came. So it's one thing to have backlash, and I think that the backlash in a lot of ways for this movie is deserved. But I think that he's having to sort of shoulder a bunch of problems that people have with Disney that he has nothing to do with. So it's not just the film. The film is probably like the straw that broke the camel's back. There are a lot of decisions that he had nothing to do with that have sort of fostered an animosity in the fan base. And when this film came out, it was their avenue to lash out on it. And there's a lot of people out there that are literally straight up trolls, and they're trying to do anything they can to undermine Disney. And I get it.
They already commented on this video, so they already made a comment.
Yeah. Well, I'm still cashing my shield check, baby. So screw you. But in all seriousness, I think that's what it is. So you and I sort of have different memories of Celebration in this way, because I remember late at night before the Last Jedi panel, Rian Johnson comes out in a white T-shirt, a pack of cigarettes, smoking in everyone's faces, and he says, "You know what I'm going to do? Destroy Star Wars." And he crinkled up the cigarette pack, and he threw it at my face, and then he walked out. And I was like, "Who's this guy?" No, I'm totally kidding, of course. But Ryan's a cool dude, and he loves Star Wars. So I think that's where it is, man. Like, I don't think he did all of this to screw with us. I really don't think so. Like, that's one of the amazing things. Like, The Last Jedi is actually really true to Star Wars. It just does things you're not expecting, and the world is just so different now where everyone gets all freaky about it.
That's what I also got to bring up. He also said, everybody is harking on, let the past die, let the past die. And I get comments every day, let the past die was the stupidest thing ever. And then Rian Johnson came and said, he's like, I'm not saying that about Star Wars. He's like, you guys missed it. I'm actually respecting the past. And in his mind, whether you agree with him or not, he feels like he respected everything that came before. I mean, he mentions Darth Sidious in this
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. Like, Luke Skywalker talks about Darth Sidious. He talks about the prequels. Guys.
Like Obi-Wan talks about he talks about the prequels the same way Obi-Wan in A New Hope talks about the prequels.
Oh, there's so many little Easter eggs and things in there. That's what I mean. And this dude literally moved to San Francisco to be closer to the story group while he was writing the script. So you're absolutely crazy if you think he's purposely screwing with people or trying to destroy Star Wars. That is 100% not the case. He made decisions. And honestly, here's the bigger thing. People are like, oh, we didn't expect the backlash. Ryan didn't expect the backlash. Do you think Disney expected the backlash? They announced a trilogy with this man before the movie came out.
But this is what I mean. Like, who watched this movie and said, look, you know what? I will strip this movie and be like, this is a perfect film. But there is a moment in this movie that I always think about that I'm like, who said yes to Luke milking the cow? Like, who was it in there that was like, this is, we got toys. We're going to sell milking cow
here's
toys.
the thing. The context, it's like have you ever heard of the Kolchov effect?
But I know what it's trying. I know like the point of it. I'm just saying, like, this is like why? Like
because they don't have because they don't have the context for it though. So you're Disney and you're watching it and you just think it's like a kind of a funny moment or like just a strange moment. That is not. It's based on it's literally like it has homage to old school kung fu movies where the master is just going around doing like ridiculous chores. Like you come to see this great kung fu master and he's out milking cows. That's super weird. And so that is what Ryan is doing in that scene. The problem, nobody at Disney could have anticipated that at this point in the movie, everyone's starting to view this movie like a big FU. And
but how do they also not see that when the first moment with Lucas, he tosses the lightsaber? Like this is like there are moment after moment where you're like,
bro, it's just a perception thing. Like you got to understand, they don't think of it the same way that the fans do. They just don't.
No, I know, but you have to think of it as a story. And so if the story is we've got to go find Luke, and then it ends with this mythical moment like this, and look, I've already said I'm fine with him not accepting lightsaber. Like I don't care. But the way he does it, right? And the minute he does it, you're like, what the? I waited 2 years to see that. And then the next thing
it was off-putting. It was off-putting.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like you go off-putting, to the point where a lot of people are like, I cannot get back. Even the redemption of Luke.
You know what's really funny too? The only person from what we're knowing, the only person that was on set that was pointing this out to everyone was Mark Hamill.
I know.
How are you not going to listen to Mark Hamill? That doesn't make any sense.
Like, I just think like the lightsaber moment. If you play that a little bit different, like you just like people are not. I don't know how many. I think we'll find out. I don't think Solo is a good sign to see. I think 9 will find out. The advance tickets for that. We'll find out where people are. But just like it's moment after moment of Luke doing things that the audience is sitting there. Like, cause the first time I saw it, I'm looking in the theater and my theater was brutal. Like it was the worst audience I've ever seen a movie with in my entire life. Like I told you, there was no clapping.
Yeah, there's like no clapping.
No one gave a crap. I was like, why are you here? The tickets were $40. They were like, oh, Star Wars.
Yeah.
What's this one about? Oh, it's an art film. And when Luke did, people were just like, what? Like everyone was like very quizzical on what was going on. I read the comments. I read a lot of the comments on the channel, and I'll say, I appreciate a lot of them. There's some things like I'll get to the point, and then they always bring up some stupid bullcrap, and I'm like, you're an idiot. Stop talking.
Yeah.
But the Luke thing is a huge deal that I don't necessarily agree with it because I don't mind it so much, but I can understand it more than some of the other stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just. Mark Hamill, you're right, is the only one that said anything, and he's the guy who's lived with this character for 40 years.
And the fans. I think that's an important aspect. Is like it wasn't just him being like, I don't know. It was him being like, I don't know. And I've spent 40 years going to conventions talking to people. And Mark, if you know Mark at all, he's just literally the nicest, salt of the earth dude. You pay $200 to go get an autograph with him, but it's worth $200 because he treats you like a person. He's going to ask you about your life. He's going to, you know what I mean? He's a really nice individual. So, point being, they should have listened to him at least a little bit. I agree with you. I agree. But I think that if you're making the film, if you're Ryan and Mark comes to you, your answer is very obvious. It's Mark. Look, I understand what you're saying. It gets paid off at the end of the film. When we pull back to Ahch-To, and he's floating on the rock, force projecting himself halfway across the galaxy. That's your payoff. It's like, oh crap! It's like the moment in the Kung Fu movie where the master's doing all this stuff, and then he comes out and whoops some ass, and you're like, whoa, titty milking dude is capable of this?
Yeah, but I still think that they went so far over the edge on him at the beginning that a lot of people just stopped caring by that point in the film. And the redemption, also, I said this on the last episode, is weak to them because there's no resolution to anything. He just kind of like...
I would agree. Look, here's the thing, and I can't believe we turned this into another criticism of The Last Jedi. I thought we were over this, bro. I thought we were done.
I've already pre-ordered it too. That's the worst part.
So I can't. First of all, on a little side back bar, I can't wait till you watch it more and more because I really, really want to talk to you about it. But you've only seen it. I shouldn't even say. But anyway,
it's actually embarrassing.
Yeah, for sure. So that'll be cool to talk to you about it more. But yeah, no, I get what you're saying. The one thing that contextually was a big problem with the movie is that you don't have enough people on the Resistance ships talking about Luke Skywalker. You don't have enough people talking about him in general in the film. Like Poe Dameron, dude, you lived under a force tree. You grew up under a force tree that Luke Skywalker and your mom got. How are you not talking about Luke Skywalker? If the Resistance is holding out hope for Luke, how is he not mentioned? That's crazy. So that could have contextually put in there where they're like, oh, we're waiting for this legend, but he's not here. Like, you know, if only we had Luke coming back.
Yeah, that's true.
And then you go back to the island and the titty milk. I think it's a little bit easier. Yeah. So that's one thing. And at the end of the film, his plan, like, he shouldn't have just walked out to face them. He should have said something like, Rey will help you get out of here. And you don't even have to explain how he knows that, because it's Luke, and he just knows. But at least then, the story makes sense in the moment. The reason that the Broom Boy scenes and the story scene is so important, you wouldn't have needed that scene if you had properly done the ending on Crate, where Luke says, I'm going to buy you some time. Get out of here. But he doesn't. He leaves it for Poe. And first of all, everybody's just staring at him. You know what I mean? Everyone's just staring at him like, good luck, buddy. You know, like, go get him, Luke. And so they don't, you know what I mean? Like, there's no, I agree with people. There's a lack of resolution there. The problem is, I mean, movie making is really tough. And I know that's not really necessarily an excuse, but I think overall the film is really, really good.
It's tough to make a sequel to a movie you haven't seen. I think that's...
Well, yeah, part of the problem, I definitely think part of the problem was that because of the way they wanted to do it, he crafted this thing before The Force Awakens was finished. So that's a production problem. I mean, look, you hired the guy to go write a script and make a movie. That's what he did.
Yeah.
It's your job as Kathy Kennedy, looking at you, Kat, it's your job to smooth these things out, to understand the process. You've been working in films for how long? Probably longer than I've been alive. You studied under Abrams. You studied under Spielberg. You studied under Lucas. You got to get your shit together. Like, you just...
I want to do a video on this with you in the future, because I think part of the problem is they modeled after Marvel. But Marvel, it's a coherent story, like art and all of them, but they're separate stories.
Right.
But Star Wars is a saga, so it works if, you know, Iron Man, you get Jon Favreau come in and do Iron Man, and then you're like, Kenneth Branagh, come do Thor. Like, that's fine. But in Star Wars, they need to connect, and I think they modeled it too much after. It's a saga, exactly. And I think, but when they came in, they're like, we're going to do it just like Marvel, and we'll have a universe, which works when it's a universe, not a saga, where it's 1, 2, and 3, right? Like, we're looking for 1, 2, and 3, and they're giving us 3 different movies.
Yeah, no, I can agree with that. I think that's interesting. You know, look, they had a lot on their plate. They'd never essentially done that without George before, and so
who also kind of did it that way. He wrote the Phantom Menace, and he's like, well, now I got to write the next one. I don't know.
I mean. The thing that George had that they don't have is he's literally a genius. So he's literally a storytelling genius. Like, so he's able to pull in all these pieces and sort of develop people around him. I mean, like, probably the best move in his entire career was hiring Kirshner, who, by the way, was his professor at USC. So you go back to the school. You know what I mean? Like, dude, what a brilliant move. What a brilliant move. Hey, Kirshner, Mr. Kirshner, Dr. Kirshner, Irving. I know you taught me how to make films. I really respect you. Help me make this other movie. You know what I mean? Like, that was was such a solid move, and it's really like putting the ego in the backseat, which after all the success of the original trilogy, he was never able to do again. But
well, he did try to get Kazan to come back for the prequels, and
yeah.
And he wanted Ron Howard to direct Phantom Menace, and everybody said, no, you do it. Because, I mean, if you've watched interviews from like 1983 before Return of the Jedi comes out, Kazan's like, it's George's movie. He's going to do what he wants. Like, by Return of the Jedi,
he was back.
Yeah.
Yep. he was rolling, man. He was rolling in dough. Yeah.
Can you blame him?
Nope. God bless him.
Can't. All right, let's wrap this up. Is Crate too similar to Hoth to you?
No, not at all. I think there's some visual similarities, but other than that, there's really not much that's similar there. I like the crate sequence a lot. I'll never forget that moment when they pull back to Luke Skywalker on Octu. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. In fact, I think that ending is so good that I was on shaky ground, and then when I walked out of the film, it was like I was in such a shaky spot, but I couldn't stop thinking about how dope what Luke did was. So I think it's brilliant. I think it sets up a really nice place for us to go to in 9. And by the way, have you heard of the news about the novelization?
It's coming out March 6th, 5th?
Yeah. Did you see
I haven't heard.
On, so there was something on
the deleted scenes?
The Star Wars show? Yeah. So they're putting in the deleted scenes, and there's some
talk about that.
Yeah, there's some really special stuff coming. And there was something on the Star Wars show where they showed some of the deleted scenes where Rey's talking to Luke. Yeah. Oh, so cool, man.
Here's a question for you, Vic. We got to do another video on the canon problem because the novelization is going to have this and that and that. But if J.J. Abrams hasn't read the novelization, does it matter? You know what I mean? Like, what if J.J. Abrams comes into it and he goes, so we start off on Han's funeral. Like,
right.
And then you know what will happen? Pablo Hidalgo will tweet out, well, if it happens in a book and it doesn't happen in a movie, always go with the movie. And you're like, well, then what the hell is the point of the book? We'll have another topic.
Let me just say something to Pablo, because Pablo, you are an incredibly hardworking dude. You're always talking with fans. I have an enormous amount of respect for you, but you got to stop being a company man. You have to stop being such a yes man company man, because we can smell the bullshit, bro. You can't say some of the things that you say. I know you want to protect Lucasfilm. I know you want to ride for the brand, and you should. They've treated you incredibly well over the years. I get it. This shit ain't going to fly. It's 2018, brother. Stop.
He did rank The Force Awakens as his number 8 of 9 Star Wars, 7 or 8 on his list of he ranked it on Twitter, and Force Awakens was pretty low on the list, which I was like, that is a ballsy move, my man. Ballsy move. I think it was Force Awakens and then Attack of the Clones. Look, whatever. But yeah, I think, he says that, and it's just, this is my problem. We'll talk about the problem with canon soon, because it's just, okay, cool, you're going to have deleted scenes. But if J.J. Abrams has not read those deleted scenes, they can still appear in 9. It's like, my head hurts.
Right? Hopefully, them taking this extra time. We don't even know if that pitch got greenlit from Terrio and JJ. We don't even know if that pitch is greenlit. So they haven't started production. They haven't, as far as I know, they started in June. Okay. June, yeah. So maybe that means the pitch was good. But my point being, they've got some time.
Yeah.
Somebody please make them read it. And by the way, don't just make JJ read it. Make the actors read it. The actors are actively looking for things to help inform them of their characters. That's part of their job. If you're going to build a canon in which things that happen have consequence for these characters, I promise you the actors want to know. They want to know. And if they don't, they suck at their job. Make them read it.
All right, so we'll wrap it up right there. This has been Flying Casual. Josh, thanks so much. You could check him out at the Den of Nerds YouTube channel. There's a good chance that you do, and that's how you came to find us. I'm James. You can find me here at the Rebel Scum Podcast. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. Have a great rest of the week, and may the force of others be with you.
8 out of 10 times. I'm sticking with that.
Hey, scumbags. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.